Hi, welcome to Budget MTG Decks. All magic fun, all cards under $1. I'm David, and today we're going to be looking at some budget alternatives for Snapcaster Mage. Now, as we all know, Snapcaster Mage is an incredibly expensive card for Modern. It comes in at around $52, which means a playset will cost you over $200. So it would be nice if we could look at some cards that are a little bit more budget. In this case, we're only going to be looking at cards that are $1 or less. So these cards are not going to be as good as Snapcaster Mage, not by a long shot. But if you do want to play with something that fulfills a similar role, let's have a look at some of these alternatives. Before we go on, we'd like to let you guys know that we do have a Patreon page. So if you want to support the show, you want us to make more of these videos, head on over to patreon.com/budgetmtgdecks. Okay, so let's have a look at, first of all, Snapcaster Mage. Snapcaster Mage costs a generic and a blue. We get a 2/1 human wizard with flash. It also has an ability that when it enters the battlefield, target instant or sorcery card in your graveyard gains flashback until the end of the turn, and the flashback cost is equal to the mana cost. That means we can cast that spell from our graveyard for the flashback cost and then exile it. So why is this card so incredibly expensive? It is very versatile, because we're going to be able to use a spell that we've already cast before again, and that spell doesn't have to be just one type of spell, such as a counter spell or a removal spell. It can be whichever one is in the graveyard that you need at that point in time. It is a warm body on the battlefield. It's a 2/1. You can use it as a surprise blocker. Additionally, there's also a lot of card value because, of course, you play this card, which is your creature, but you also get to cast a spell. So it does so much. It's so versatile, depending on what your graveyard is. So that is actually the reason why it is so incredibly expensive, because Snapcaster Mage does so many different things depending on what card it targets in the graveyard. We can't really say that there's any one type of card that will exactly fulfill the same role as Snapcaster Mage. So we're gonna have to look at the cards with which it combos usually. So first card we're gonna be looking at is Snapcaster while targeting, for example, a Mana Leak. Now, Mana Leak is costs a generic and a blue. It's an instant that allows us to counter target spell unless its controller pays 3 mana. So it's a nice little counter spell for a total of 4 mana, because we pay 2 mana for Snapcaster Mage, and we target the Mana Leak, which also costs 2 mana. So a total of 4 mana, we're going to be able to essentially be countering somebody's spell. So a good alternative for this could be Spellstutter Sprite. Spellstutter Sprite also costs a generic and a blue. So for 2 mana, it's a 1/1 wizard, which comes in with flash, so it's just as fast as Snapcaster Mage. It also has flying, which is not too relevant, but when this guy enters the battlefield, we're going to counter target spell with converted mana cost X or less, where X is the number of fairies we control. So of course, the first one we cast, we're only going to be able to counter a spell of converted mana cost 1 or less. The second one, because of course we're going to be wanting to play a playset of these, just as you want to be playing a playset of Snapcaster Mage. Not as strong as a combination Snapcaster Mage Mana Leak, but should still be able to fulfill the role of being able to counter a few spells. The next card we're going to be looking at, which also tries to fulfill that role, is Mystic Snake. Mystic Snake costs a generic, a green, and 2 blues. So now we're already exploring an area where Snapcaster Mage is maybe not played, which is with green in addition to the red and blue, for example, where it's usually seen in the decks. This is a 2/2 snake, also with flash. You're going to need that when you're going to be countering spells. When this guy enters the battlefield, counter target spell. Okay, so it fulfills essentially for exactly the same mana cost as a Snapcaster Mage and a Mana Leak. It is going to be giving us an extra toughness creature, also with flash. It's going to be able to counter spell, and of course with Mana Leak, if your opponent does have 3 or more mana, they would be able to still cast a spell. Not so with Mystic Snake. Downside is, of course, with Mystic Snake, you are going to need a way to be producing that green. Another combination in which Snapcaster is usually found is by playing it and then flashing back Lightning Bolt. Now, Lightning Bolt costs a single red. It's an instant and allows us to deal 3 damage to target creature or player. So this is a very nice little removal. So what kind of cards can we use that kind of fulfills that same role? First card we're going to be looking at is Steam Core Weird. So for 3 and a blue, we're going to get a 1/3 Weird. And this one doesn't have flash. You're not going to be able to be playing it in essentially the same way as you play a Snapcaster Mage, because Snapcaster Mage, of course, you do it in response. But this guy, when he enters the battlefield, if we use red to cast it, we're going to be able to deal 2 damage to target creature or player. So once again, there's a lot of downsides. Snapcaster Mage plus the Lightning Bolt, that's 3 mana total. 1 blue and 1 red at least. This one is going to be costing us 4 mana, so we're going to have to pay an extra mana to get sort of the same effect. Once again, we're also going to need the blue, we're going to need the red. The body's a little bit bigger, but again, it doesn't have flash, so we won't be able to do it in response to something. And of course, the damage is 1 less than we would be getting from Lightning Bolt. So all in all, not as good, but if you want a creature that comes in kind of as a removal and also on the body on the ground, then this one could fulfill that role. Next card is it Snapcaster for a generic, a blue and a red. It gives us a 0/3 human wizard. This one does have flash, okay? So this one we're going to be able to use it in response just as we would be able to play with the Snapcaster Mage. It costs exactly the same as it would have cost us to flashback the Snapcaster Mage plus the Lightning Bolt, so also the 3 mana, blue and a red. This guy's got haste, so immediately when it comes in, it's going to be able to do what it's got to do, and that is tap to deal 1 damage to target creature and each other creature with the same name as that creature. So essentially, instead of dealing 3 damage to 1 creature, it's only to be able to do 1, so that's a pretty big downside, because we won't be able to kill those 3 or 2 toughness creatures. However, it does have a benefit in the sense that if you're going against tokens, not only be able to remove one of those tokens, but we'll be able to remove all those little 1/1 flying spirits, for example, with the same name. So yes, we're giving up some power in these combinations, but it still functions as removal in those same colors and the same mana cost as well. Snapcaster Mage is often used as well with Vapor Snag. Vapor Snag costs a single blue. It's an instant that allows us to return target creature to its owner's hand, and its controller loses 1 life. So in essence, what we want to be paying 3 mana to have a creature on the battlefield and to be able to return a creature from our opponent back to their hand. First card is Ether Adept for a 2 blue and a generic, so for 3 mana. So this is exactly the same cost that a Snapcaster and a Vapor Snag would cost. And it's a 2/2 human wizard. When it comes in, we're going to return target creature back to its owner's hand. You may say, okay, well, this is exactly the same. It's not, because it doesn't have the flash. That is exactly what we're missing on this card. So we can only do it in our own turn, in one of our 2 main phases. That is a pretty big downside, so that's not to be underestimated. However, for exactly the same cost, it does essentially do the same thing. Then we're going to move on to Harbinger of the Tides for 2 blue. We get a 2/2 Merfolk Wizard. But we do get to cast this guy as though it had flash if we pay an additional 2. So in essence, for a premium of 1 extra mana, of course, Snapcaster with Vapor Snag, that would cost us 3 mana. Harbinger Tides with the extra cost to be able to play it with flashback would cost us 4 mana. Then when it enters the battlefield, we're going to return target tapped creature an opponent controls to its owner's hand. So again, a downside, we're paying 1 extra. It does give us the flash. It has a little bit extra toughness, but the problem is that the creature does need to be tapped. Good thing is that this works really well against a creature that they're going to be attacking us with. You know, we can do that before they deal damage to us, but still, we can't just do that to, for example, big fat opponent, utility creature that they have no thoughts of attacking us with. Now, an aspect that a Snapcaster Mage, the reason why it's so good is because it gives us that value, that extra draw, essentially, because it comes in and allows us to reuse a card. A card that could kind of fulfill that role is Abbot of Carroll Keep. That's for a generic and a red. So for 2 mana, it's a human monk, 2/1, exactly the same body. It has prowess, but additionally, when this guy enters the battlefield, we're going to exile the top card of our library, and until the end of turn, we may play that card. So it's kind of the same sense. It's got the same cost, same kind of body. It's not instant speed, so we're not able to use it as a surprise blocker, but it does allow us to get an extra card, which is, of course, a really nice aspect of Snapcaster Mage. Augur of Bolas for a generic and a blue. We get a 1/3 Merfolk Wizard. When this guy enters the battlefield, we're going to look at the top 3 cards of our library and then reveal an instant sorcery card from among them, put it into our hand, and then put the rest at the bottom of our library in any order. So once again, this is a creature for the same cost, comes in, gives us a body, gives us another instance of sorcery that we could use. So sure, if we would have, in those top 3 cards, we would have had a Lightning Bolt, for example, then yeah, we can cast that. That would be super great. Once again, big downside is that we don't have that flash, which is why Snapcaster Mage is so good, allows us to react to our opponents, which of course this card does not. Archaeomancer is next, of course, a card that people immediately think of when they think of Snapcaster Mage. In essence, you say, okay, well, it's 4 mana, so it's cost 2 mana more, but it returns an instance or sorcery card back to our hand, which means we're not limited to have it to play it that turn. We can play it later on. Super great. It's got a 1/2 body. Okay, the stats are flipped around. The fact that this is going to be able to return us a card, instance or sorcery card, is not the same as Snapcaster Mage. It's because, of course, it doesn't have the flash. So in essence and of course it costs 2 mana more. So it's by far not good enough, but as a substitute, this card is one of the cheapest cards that does about the same thing. Then finally we have, I think, a better card than Archaeomancer, and that is Goblin Dark Dwellers. Goblin Dark Dweller costs 3 and 2 red, so for 5 mana we get a 4/4 menace creature. Additionally, when this guy enters the battlefield, we're gonna cast target instant or sorcery spell with converted mana cost 3 or less from our graveyard without paying its mana cost. That card will be put into the graveyard this turn. We're gonna exile it instead. Okay, you may think, okay, how can you compare those two? One is 2 mana, the other is 5 mana. Well, remember that Snapcaster Mage is never really 2 mana because you have to pay the flashback cost of whatever spell you want to cast. So in that case, if you are flashbacking back a 3 converted mana cost 3 instant spell or a sorcery, that means you are also paying 5 mana. So in essence, it's exactly the same cost. Once again, downside, Goblin Dark Dwellers does not have flash. That is a recurring theme over here. That's one of the reasons why Snapcaster Mage is so incredibly expensive. Goblin Dark Dwellers does not give us that, but for exactly the same cost, except of course we're going to need to go into red and not blue, but decks that play Snapcaster Mage usually play both colors. And additionally, and also a big benefit of Goblin Dark Dwellers is of course the fact that it is a 4/4 with menace. And while Snapcaster Mage is a nice little 2/1 attacker or blocker and can save you some damage because being a chump blocker, a Goblin Dark Dwellers is a substantial attacker with evasion that can also win you the game on the ground. Very, very solid card. Well, those are, in our opinion, the best budget substitutes for Snapcaster Mage. Must again say, these are in no way the same power level, no way going to be straight 1-to-1 substitutes for Snapcaster Mage. But if you want cards that do similar things, I would highly recommend you try these cards out, a combination of cards, to see if they do fulfill that same role for what you want them to do. But if you want total versatility, a card that does it all, of course, there is no substitute for Snapcaster Mage. We're also going to ask you guys to check out our Patreon page. You like these videos, you want us to make more, go over to patreon.com/budgetmtgdecks and consider giving us $1. We'd really appreciate it. Also join us on Facebook and on Twitter @BudgetMTGDecks, where we can have discussions. Did we miss some? Do you think, hey, that card doesn't belong on the list, or you forgot this other card, which is super, super great? Let us know. We'll share it with the rest of the world. And that's it. Also, don't forget to subscribe to this channel for the most powerful decks and device everyone can afford. Okay, that's really it. Thanks for watching. I'm David. This is Budget MTG Decks.